Welcome to The Explainer. We're coming to you today with a special report from the Human Error News Network. We're about to dive deep into a story that, on the surface, seems pretty simple, but it actually reveals a powerful lesson about how we respond when things go wrong.
So let's set the scene. It's January 18th in Spokane, Washington. A double-decker bus crashes. 7 people end up in the hospital. It's exactly the kind of incident that has everyone demanding answers, and fast.
And those initial answers? They came really quickly. The Spokane Transit Authority, or STA, wrapped up its investigation and pointed the finger at a very familiar culprit: human error. Case closed, right? Well, not so fast.
The first report was pretty straightforward. It said the driver never reported any problems with his navigation system. And, this is crucial, he didn't follow the paper directions he was trained to use as a backup. So it really looks like a clear-cut case of an individual making a mistake.
But as we so often find out, that first story, well, it isn't always the full story. And this is where our special report really kicks into gear. Let's just walk through the timeline. The crash happens on January 18th. About 2 months go by, and on March 20th, the investigation is officially closed. But then, get this, just 4 days later, the whole thing changes. Some new information comes to light that is so significant, the SDA has to reopen the entire case. So what could have been so important? Okay. Here's the bombshell. It turns out another driver on that very same route had called dispatch that same morning to report that the navigation system was giving out the wrong directions. This wasn't just some one-off glitch on the bus that crashed. It was a known issue.
And this is exactly where the system broke down. The STA's own CEO, Carl Otterstrom, admitted it himself. That critical piece of communication from the first driver, it was never flagged properly. It just got lost somewhere in the shuffle.
So this really brings us to the core conflict at the heart of this incident, and honestly any incident like it. It's this constant battle between blaming someone versus actually learning something.
See, every organization faces this fundamental choice when a failure happens. You can point the finger at the person on the front lines, that's often the easiest thing to do, or you can decide to dig deeper and learn from the failure itself. And here's the most important part. You really can't do both of those things at the same time.
Let's just compare these two paths, side by side. If you just blame the human, what do you get? Punishment. The deeper system flaws that probably set that person up to fail stay hidden. And guess what? The same kinds of errors are just going to happen again. But if you choose to learn from the failure, that's when you start making real system improvements. You uncover those hidden weaknesses, and you actually make it possible to prevent it from happening again. So if learning is the real goal here, how do you actually go about building a safer system? Well, it all starts by looking beyond the driver's seat and taking a hard look at the entire organization.
The reopened investigation shows this shift in thinking perfectly. They're not just looking at the driver anymore. No, they're asking bigger questions. How did our dispatch team handle that warning? What's our actual process for dealing with technical reports? Why was this specific route affected? And maybe most importantly, how did our own investigation miss this the first time around? The CEO's words, again, really highlight this focus on the whole system. He's acknowledging that dispatchers are making tough judgment calls all day long. So the goal now isn't just to look at their actions, but to review the processes or systems that should be there to support them, to make sure a critical warning about a faulty GPS doesn't just fall through the cracks.
So how do we turn all of this insight into actual prevention? Well, the investigation points to 3 critical, actionable things that could have completely changed the outcome that day.
First, drivers have to have a crystal clear way to report navigation errors the second they happen. Second, dispatch absolutely needs a solid system to triage those warnings and immediately escalate them to every other driver who might be affected. And third, anytime the technology is in doubt, the standard procedure, the default, has to be switching to reliable manual backups, like those paper directions. So here's the bottom line. Yes, the driver made an error. He didn't follow his training. But the organization had a system that completely failed to protect him and his passengers from that error. Remember, another driver did do the right thing and reported the problem, and the system still failed. That is the bigger, more important lesson here.
And that leaves all of us with a question to think about. Think about your own workplace, your team, maybe even just in your own life. When something goes wrong, what is that first gut reaction question that gets asked? Is it, who's to blame for this? Or is it, why did our system allow this to happen? The answer to that question, well, it says everything.